original background was documentary film, and here I'm doing comedy shows. I kind of tend to want to say that home videos is, in one form, it's kind of like mini documentaries about comedy and about human foibles, and so maybe I'm still making documentaries, I don't know. There's several ways to get to where you want to go, and no way is the correct one. I think the most important thing to do is to be dedicated, to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I think everybody in the room knows that there's no such thing as a 9-to-5 job, that very often it's 7 to midnight, or it's 24 hours straight, or 36 hours straight, depending on what the deadline is. And that's kind of the mindset you have to get ready for. Because when the project happens and when you are on the line, you've got to devote that amount of time, that amount of energy, that amount of spirit to the project. There's kind of 4 things that need to happen to be successful at something. And 3 of them are manageable. 1 is not. But it pretty much does work each time if you sort of break down what happens. I think the 4 things you need to have a successful show, movie, script, whatever, is that 4 of these things have to fall in line. Premise, execution, preparation, and then of course luck. The 4th one is the most elusive, and that's the difficult one. But if you have a good premise and you have good execution, you're likely to have a success. If you're lacking any one of them, if you have good premise but lousy execution, it's not going to work. If you have great execution but a bad premise, it's not going to work. And if you have both premise and execution and you're not prepared to do it, you don't have the background, you haven't done your homework, it won't work. And then of course, how do you get the luck part? I don't know. You have to be at the right place at the right time, or you have to make the right place at the right time. Just a little bit about my background to help you focus to where I am now. I went to Emerson. Actually, the lady in the white hat in the back is my mom. And we had a very interesting relationship as mother and child. When most parents were saying, go do your homework, my mom was taking me to the movies 3 times a week. Sometimes we just go to the Park Theater and stay there for a night, you know. But I did that 2 or 3 times a week religiously. And I had elocution lessons and dramatic lessons when I was a kid. I was on the radio when I was 8 years old. And I went to RISD every Saturday morning, which sort of helped the visual perspective. So a lot of this stuff all comes together. So if you have kids and they're interested, don't push them into it. If they're interested, a lot of that helps. But in college, I went to Emerson, studied radio and television. Then I decided to go to UCLA Film School. When I got there, I decided I wanted to do documentaries, so I spent 2 years making documentaries. Came back to Boston and worked at BZ for 9 years. Joan was one of the folks who worked with me there. And it was a good 9 years. Maybe 2 or 3 years too long, but that's all hindsight. But in '77, I decided I'd done everything twice there, so I moved to LA, and I thought I was really hot shit. And so I didn't work for 9 months. And in that 9 months, what happened was you get leads, you go meet people. And interestingly enough, almost everybody I met in those 9 months, I've either worked for or hired in the last 20 years. So there's a small cycle that just continues, and it continues all throughout your life in the business. I'm a really firm believer in not burning bridges, because it really all does come back. It's amazing how many times it happens. But when I got to LA, I really needed to work, and lo and behold, my birthday week, I had 3 job offers. So something happened. I'm quite not sure what it was. And then from then on, I worked for a long time. I have been out of work for 4 to 6 months in a couple of stretches, but I've been really very fortunate. Then, in the probably around the mid '80s, I met a fellow in Florida on a very difficult shoot. It was horrendously difficult. It was the National Cheerleading Championship on the beach in front of the Fontainebleau Hotel. It was a tough assignment, I got to tell you. And he was a young aspiring agent at ICM, and we just liked each other. And unfortunately, the producer of that show had just discovered cocaine and never came out of his room. And it was great because we wound up producing the show, and a bond formed between us. And we've been together 20 years. He was my agent for 18, 19. Now he's my partner. And we've never had a contract. Never had a contract. Actually, we had a contract at ICM for the first year, and then we decided we didn't need it. And so relationships are tremendously important.